2 days before a big TV show, Keanu Reeves was sitting quietly in a small cafe on the east side of Los Angeles. He was holding a notebook in one hand and an old black and white photo in the other. The picture showed him and his late partner smiling on a rooftop in New York from 20 years ago. It was a peaceful afternoon, just like any other, but it would soon turn into something special. A producer came up to Keanu gently, almost as if Keanu were a monk meditating. "Would you like to be on Lena's show? They want to do a kindness segment, and you seem like the perfect person," the producer said. Keanu looked down at the photo, then nodded his head. "Kindness doesn't need a stage," he said quietly. "But sometimes the world needs a reminder." With that, he agreed to go. When the day for the show arrived, Keanu kept it simple. He wore his usual black boots, a charcoal gray jacket with a little wear on the sleeves, and a silver ring on his right hand that he had worn since his partner passed away. A stylist tried to give him something more stylish for the cameras, but Keanu politely declined. "I'm not here to decorate your ratings," he said with a smile. Behind the scenes, Lena's team whispered to each other about how they would make Keanu emotional. They had plans to ask him about his past, about his losses, about his lonely life. "Ask about his pain, make him feel vulnerable," one intern said. Lena laughed softly. "People love to see gods bleed." Finally, it was time for Keanu to go on stage. As he walked out, the audience stood up, not because they were told to, but because there was something about him that made them feel they should. There was a quiet power in him. Lena opened the conversation with one of her signature jokes. "Here he is, the man who turned sadness into a brand, Keanu Reeves." Keanu smiled a little and said, "Thank you for having me," but didn't seem to be there for the jokes. His presence was calm, almost like he was waiting for something important to happen. Lena continued with her humor, asking, "You're known for being kind, quiet, and private. Don't you think that makes you a little irrelevant in today's world of influencers?" The crowd wasn't sure how to react. Was she joking? Was she being mean? Keanu didn't blink. He didn't flinch. He looked at her, and with all his calmness, he said, "Relevance is just popularity wearing a mask. I'm not interested in masks." The whole room went silent. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was as if they were all hearing something deeper than they expected. Lena didn't know what to do, but she kept going. "I heard you live alone. No big mansion, no chef, no entourage. Don't you think success means upgrading your life?" Keanu looked at her, then said softly, "Success is when you can sit with yourself in silence and feel no shame." The room went still. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was something else, something special. Lena tried to move things along, asking, "Don't you think your fans want more? Something big and glamorous?" Keanu answered, "They don't need big. They need real help. And sometimes, the realest thing you can do is show up exactly as you are, no matter how unpolished, no matter how broken." The audience went quiet. Some had tears in their eyes. They didn't clap yet, but there was a deep understanding that something had just shifted in the room. Keanu wasn't speaking with anger. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He was simply sharing his truth, and in doing so, he made people look at themselves and their own lives in a new way. Lena tried to keep things light again, but it didn't work. The mood had already changed. Lena moved on to another question, forcing a smile. "You've been through a lot in your life, right? Loss, pain. Doesn't it get exhausting?" Keanu paused, then said quietly, "Pain doesn't exhaust you. Pretending you're not in pain does." The room fell silent again, as if everyone was holding their breath. Keanu spoke again, his voice steady. "People don't come up to me in airports and thank me for being famous. They thank me for surviving. Sometimes, surviving is the loudest thing a person can do." Lena was stunned, trying to laugh it off. "So, now you're the Buddha of Beverly Hills?" No one laughed. They all just sat there, reflecting on his words. Keanu didn't react to the joke. Instead, he said, "No, I'm not a saint. I'm just someone who learned not to run from quiet." Lena tried again, asking, "But don't you think your silence can be misunderstood?" Keanu nodded. Silence always risks being misunderstood. But so does every truth that matters. In the back of the studio, a producer whispered to the sound engineer, "He's flipping the room." The engineer didn't even look up, but simply nodded, saying, "He's not flipping it. He's freeing it." Lena's smile started to fade. She flipped to her next card, but it wasn't just the words she had written. She knew she had lost control of the situation. She had tried to push Keanu into something he wasn't. But now, the real Keanu was speaking, and there was no going back. Keanu's words had cut through the noise, making everyone in the room pause and think. The producers, the audience, and even Lena could feel it. There was no turning back now. They were all hearing something real. Lena shuffled her notes, unsure of what to ask next. The question on the card said, "Ask about his father's death." But Lena couldn't do it. She looked at Keanu, then decided to fold the card and put it aside. She understood that the conversation had shifted from her control to something far more meaningful. Keanu, sensing the change, spoke again, not just to Lena but to everyone watching, including the millions of people at home. You don't have to perform your worth. You don't have to hustle for grace. You are allowed to be a quiet storm. And you don't need applause to be real. That was the moment when everyone in the audience stood up, not because they were told to, but because they knew deep down that they had just witnessed something incredible. They had seen a man stand tall in his quietness, in his truth, and in his vulnerability. Lena, for the first time, didn't have a scripted answer. She sat there, still, her smile gone, her eyes a little glassy. The show cut to a commercial, but backstage, everything had changed. No one was laughing or chatting. They were all deep in thought, realizing that something powerful had just happened. When the show came back from the break, everything felt different. The air was heavier. The audience wasn't just watching a celebrity interview anymore. They were part of a shared experience. Even the crew seemed to move slower, with more care. Lena reached for her next card. It was supposed to be a fun segment titled Rapid Fire with Keanu. It was meant to be playful, quick, and light. But after everything that had happened, it felt wrong. It felt out of place, like trying to make a joke at a funeral. Keanu sat there calmly, still. His presence wasn't cold. It was like a tree standing in the middle of a storm. His silence spoke volumes, and everyone could feel it. Lena, unsure of what to do, tried to bring the mood back up, but it didn't work. She asked, "Let's talk about legacy. You don't chase awards or post selfies. Don't you worry your legacy might be forgotten?" Keanu smiled gently and said, "Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you put into people while you're here. Fame fades. Impact lingers." And with that, the room felt a little fuller, a little more alive, with the quiet understanding that Keanu's words would stay with them for a long time. As the show ended, no one was rushing to get to the next segment. People were still processing what they had witnessed. They had seen Keanu, not as a movie star, but as a person who had been through pain, who had learned to be still and kind, and who had reminded everyone that they don't have to hide their feelings or pretend to be something they're not. In the end, Keanu had done something rare. He showed the world that being real, even when it's quiet, can be louder and more meaningful than anything else. When my car broke down in the 90s, I was just a regular person, and he didn't know who I was. But he didn't care about that. He didn't want anyone to be walking alone at night. I remember that man more clearly than I remember most of the fancy events I've been to. The audience in the room leaned in, paying attention. There was no fancy camera work, no cool graphics, and no dramatic music. But somehow, This moment felt bigger than any big movie premiere. Lena tried to ask one last question. Her voice was louder, but it sounded a bit forced, not as real. She said, "If you don't care about fame, or how famous people look, or all that spotlight, then why come on this show?" Keanu just looked at her, not saying anything at first. And then, he said something that made everyone stop for a moment. It was like something big had just happened. He said, "I came because people listen to you, and I hoped they might hear something different today. Something that doesn't make them laugh or scroll or click. Something that might remind them that they're allowed to just be." The room went quiet. No one clapped or cheered. Some people even wiped away a tear. The person in charge of editing the show, the one who usually cuts things quickly, just sat there, not sure what to do. He didn't know whether to move on to the next part or stay in this special moment. Lena was quiet for a few seconds, and then she spoke, but her voice was shaking. She said, "You make it sound so easy. To be kind, to be real, but it's not easy. It's hard. People expect you to always smile, to always be funny. If you stop, people leave. If you tell the truth, people get mad at you. So you keep smiling, even when you're hurting inside." Keanu didn't interrupt. He just waited. After a long pause, he said, "Maybe it's time we stop smiling for the wrong people. Maybe the ones who left weren't really with us in the first place." Lena looked down, blinking fast like she was holding back tears. She asked, "Do you ever feel like, no matter how much you give, it's never enough?" Keanu nodded. "All the time. But I stopped giving just to be enough. I started to be whole. That was the second big moment. People all over the internet started talking about it. They said things like, 'Keanu heals Lena in real time,' and 'Keanu just explained everything wrong with fame.' It wasn't just because it was dramatic or exciting. People shared it because it felt so real. It hurt, but it was the kind of hurt that helps people heal, like a wound that is finally being taken care of. Behind the scenes, the people who managed the show were worried. They got emails from companies asking if everything was okay. But the truth was, nothing was okay. And for the first time, they weren't hiding it. Lena had cracked. Her image wasn't the same anymore, not destroyed, but humanized. It made some people feel uncomfortable, but it also made others feel relieved. When the show ended, Keanu stood up and shook Lena's hand. It wasn't a big hug or anything fancy, just a small, respectful handshake. He walked backstage, and Milo, his assistant, was there waiting for him. "Are you okay?" Milo asked. Keanu nodded and said, "That wasn't for them." He pointed back to the stage. It was for the ones watching in silence, the ones who wonder if they still matter. Milo gave him his coat, and Keanu put it on. "Do you think they heard it?" Milo asked. Keanu smiled gently and said, "I think they felt it." And out there, somewhere in a quiet living room, or maybe in a hospital waiting room, or even in a dorm room filled with worries, someone watched that interview. They put a hand on their chest and whispered, "I needed this." It was the kind of moment that helps people. It wasn't loud or funny, but it was real. After the show went to commercial break and came back, the mood had changed. The studio didn't feel like a typical set anymore. It was softer, and the air seemed heavier. It felt like everyone in the room was holding their breath. Lena's usual confidence was gone. She seemed smaller, more real, like she was thinking deeply about everything that had just happened. Her voice, which used to be sharp and quick, now felt quieter, slower. She looked down at her notes, but didn't pick them up. They didn't matter now. The scripts she had prepared earlier didn't fit anymore. Keanu sat across from her, calm and steady, his hands in his lap, just waiting. There was a new question in the air, one that wasn't being said out loud but was felt by everyone. It was a big question. What happens when someone who entertains everyone can't perform anymore? Lena looked up and made eye contact with the audience. Then she turned to Keanu and asked, her voice full of honesty and a little sadness, "Do you ever wish you could just start over?" She didn't ask it in a clever way or with a joke. It was just a simple, real question. Keanu didn't answer right away. He sat quietly for a long time. Then, after the silence, he leaned forward a bit and said, "I don't think we ever really start over. But I think we get to start deeper if we're brave enough to stop pretending." The room was silent. No one moved or made a sound. What Keanu said felt so powerful, like it was a truth that everyone needed to hear. Behind the cameras, someone turned off the applause sign. It wasn't needed anymore. Lena, though, didn't speak right away. She looked down, her eyes starting to fill with tears again. For so long, Lena had made jokes to cover up her real feelings. But at this moment, she didn't hide anymore. She said softly, "I used to think the laughter was saving me. But maybe now I see that it was hiding me." Keanu nodded. That's what noise does. It covers up the pain so we don't have to look at it. But healing starts when we finally look. It wasn't just a conversation anymore. It felt like something bigger was happening. Something important. There were people in the audience, people who were watching at home, who started to cry or feel something deep inside them. It wasn't loud. It wasn't planned. But it was real. At that moment, Lena said, "I don't know who I am without the laughter." Her voice shook. Keanu, as calm as ever, gave the simplest answer. "Maybe now's the time to find out." It was the most unscripted moment in daytime TV. The show ended quietly. There was no big applause. No goodbye music. No funny dance to send people off. There was just a small, quiet applause from the people who had been in the room, the kind that spread slowly across the room, as if everyone knew they had just witnessed something rare. Keanu didn't wave to the audience as he left. He didn't make any grand gestures. He just placed one hand on his chest, gave a slight nod, and walked off the stage. The crew stayed silent for a while. Some hugged, some sat down, and others just stared, thinking about everything that had just happened. Later, when the segment was shown on TV, it wasn't edited. It hasn't changed. It was real, just like when it happened. And people all over the country started talking about it. They didn't share it because it was funny. They shared it because it made them feel something true and deep. Keanu didn't watch the response. He never does. But Milo, his friend, was looking at his phone, reading the comments. "Wow, half the country is crying because of this," he said. Keanu just smiled and said, "They didn't cry because of me. They cried because I reminded them that they're allowed to feel." The next day, Lena wrote something very special. She didn't ask her public relations team to help. She didn't use fancy words. She just wrote what was in her heart and posted it online. It said, "I spent most of my career trying to make people laugh so they wouldn't look too closely." That was her truth. And in the days that followed, something amazing happened. People started to reflect on what they had seen. They didn't laugh or joke about it. They didn't make memes or try to make fun of the moment. Instead, they shared their own feelings. They admitted things they hadn't said before. People from all over the world wrote comments about how they were struggling too, and how hearing Keanu and Lena talk made them feel less alone. It wasn't just a funny TV show anymore. It had become a real moment that people could connect with. Keanu's message, though simple, had given people permission to feel. And for many, that was exactly what they needed. Keanu made me think that maybe I should have let people see the real me. I'm not perfect, and I don't want to act like I am anymore. If you saw yourself in me during that interview, I want to tell you, I see you too. It was signed just Lena. People loved the message. Not because it came from someone famous, but because it felt real and true. And the amazing thing? Keanu never said anything back. He didn't share it online. He didn't make a speech. Because he didn't do it for attention. But he did something even more special. 1 week later, a tiny video appeared online. It didn't come from a TV show or a big news place. It came from a nurse who worked at a hospital where very sick people stay before they pass away. In the video, Keanu sat next to an old man. He was reading a book called The Prophet out loud. The man, who looked very old and gentle, was smiling. A long time ago, that man had saved a child from getting hurt on a train track. Keanu found out about it from someone at work and wanted to visit him. No one knew Keanu was going. No cameras were invited. The nurse took the video because, as she said, "I just couldn't believe someone so famous would sit so quietly, for so long, with someone that most people have forgotten." Maybe that's the kind of legacy Keanu was talking about. Not being famous, not having statues or big awards, but just being there for someone. Being real. Being kind. And then, something started changing. Other talk show hosts saw what happened and felt something inside. Some of them changed the way they talked on their shows. They stopped the fake laughs. They had deeper talks. They stopped doing silly games and started sharing real feelings. Some of them even said, live on TV, that they had been acting for too long. A few TV bosses weren't happy. One of them said, "This isn't fun anymore." But guess what? The people watching at home liked it more. Not because it was louder or funnier, but because it was honest. People didn't need jokes all the time anymore. They just wanted to feel okay. Back at her show, Lena got ready to film the next episode. There was no audience. No dancing. No silly opening. Just her sitting with a librarian from a small town. The librarian had become a little bit famous for opening her library at night to help kids who were feeling sad or scared. No fame. No big lights. Just two people talking. No more pretending. When the show ended that day, there was no music. Just a quote on the screen. Kindness isn't weakness. It's what stays when everything else is gone. So if you're still here, still thinking about that interview, still feeling something inside you that you haven't said, maybe now is the time. Maybe it's time to start again. Or go deeper. Maybe it's time to sit with your own quiet and understand. It's not emptiness. It's space. And if this story meant something to you, even just a little, maybe share it. Not for likes or followers, but for someone who's still pretending to be okay. Because sometimes, one person telling the truth can help others do the same. Keanu didn't disappear after the interview. But he didn't try to stay in the spotlight either. Like always, he went back to his quiet life, the one he likes best. But the world didn't forget him. In coffee shops, homes, schools, and hospitals, his words kept being remembered, like the sound of a bell that still rings even after it's been hit. A week later, a young woman shared a video of herself watching the interview again, for the 5th time. She wrote, "I used to think being strong meant being loud. He made me realize it means being still." Her video was watched by 12 million people. Lena, meanwhile, was still feeling everything that had happened. But this time, she welcomed it. The person she used to act like on TV, funny, untouchable, always smiling, didn't feel right anymore. And weirdly, that felt good. It felt like she could finally rest. She started her next show with something new. No dancing. No jokes. She said, "I think I owe you more than a laugh. Let's start again." And then, a new part of the show began. It was called Letters from the Quiet Ones. Every week, someone from the audience came up and read a letter they had written but never shared. Letters to a parent who passed away. Letters to their younger selves. Letters to strangers who helped them and never knew. The segment didn't go viral, but it touched hearts. It went deeper. And it all happened because one man didn't laugh at a mean joke. He answered with kindness. One day, someone from another TV network called Lena's team and asked, "How did you get Keanu to say all that?" The answer? We didn't. He wasn't there to act. He was there to remind us. And somehow, he woke something up in a world that forgot how to slow down. Back in Los Angeles, Keanu stood in his garden, watering his plants, just like always. It wasn't fancy. Just a man with a watering can, humming to himself. Milo, a friend of his, came out holding a letter. "You should see this," he said. It was a handwritten letter from a woman in Wisconsin. She had lost her son. She wrote, "He watched your movies. But more than that, he watched your interviews. He once told me you were the only famous person who looked like he understood him. I wish he had lived to see this one. I think it would have helped him. I just wanted to say thank you for showing the world that quiet people carry the loudest truths." Keanu held the letter softly. Then he folded it and put it in a wooden box. That box had many letters, dozens of them. Each one a reminder that being quiet can be powerful. That weekend, Keanu visited a small school just outside the city. Not for a commercial. Not for fame. Just to sit in a classroom and talk to teenagers about staying strong. One boy, with soft eyes and rough fingers from playing violin, raised his hand. "Mr. Reeves," he asked, "how do you stay kind in a world that's so mean?" Keanu smiled and kneeled next to his desk. "You stay kind," he said, "by remembering the world isn't just mean. It's also full of people asking the same question. And when you stay kind, you show them it's okay to be human." The teacher cried quietly at her desk. Later, one student wrote in her diary, "He didn't save us. He just reminded us we were worth saving." Back at Lena's show, things kept changing. Her ratings weren't as big as before. But something better took their place: trust. Not trust from being funny, but from being real. Lena started reading the comments people sent in, all of them. The good ones. The hard ones. The honest ones. One message stayed in her heart. Someone wrote, "You used to feel untouchable. Now you feel like one of us. That's the best version of you." One night, Lena stayed at her desk long after the crew left. She watched the clip of Keanu again. The part where he said, "Success is when you can sit with yourself in silence and feel no shame." She paused the video and looked around the empty studio. No laughter. No bright lights. Just her reflection on the screen. She picked up her phone and typed a message. "Hey Keanu, I've been thinking a lot. Would you ever come back? Not for an interview. Just a conversation. No lights. No crowd. Just the truth." She didn't send it. Not yet. She saved it as a draft. Because sometimes, the best talks take time. They're built slowly, like a house made with quiet bricks and gentle hands. Somewhere else in the city, Keanu stood at a crosswalk, waiting for the light to change. A man walked up to him and said, "I don't want to bother you, but I just wanted to say, thank you." Months passed. The world kept spinning. New problems came. New stars rose and fell. But in quiet places, people still remembered that one interview. Not because it was loud, but because it was true. Some people watched it once and forgot. Others watched it once and never looked at life the same again. Like the dad in Montana who finally hugged his daughter and said, "I'm sorry I've been angry. I was just scared of feeling broken." Or the boy in South Korea who stopped pretending to be cool in group chats. Or the girl in Brazil who deleted all her filters and posted a photo saying, "This is me. No noise. Just me." What brought all these people together wasn't Keanu's fame. It was his calm. In a world where everything shouted, he whispered something people didn't know they needed. Permission to slow down. To feel. To be gentle. Without saying sorry for it. Like a soft song you only hear when everything else goes quiet, people began hearing themselves again. Lena later took a break from TV. Not because of trouble, but by choice. In her last episode, she didn't dance. She didn't joke. She sat on the edge of the stage and spoke to the camera. I've made you laugh for a long time, and I hope I did. But if I can leave you with something stronger than laughter, let me leave you with courage. The courage to be honest, with others and with yourself. She paused, then smiled, not a fake smile, but a real, soft one. Thank you for letting me fall. And thank you for watching me get back up. It was the quietest goodbye she'd ever had, and the most powerful. Keanu didn't do anything big afterward. No awards. No interviews. No book about what happened. He just kept living. He still went to the same bookstore every Thursday. Still talked to the same barista who wanted to be a poet. Still stopped to pet dogs on the street. And when people came up to him crying or sharing their stories, he never walked away. He listened, like they were the only people in the world. Because that's what he had always done. And finally, the world saw it. If you liked this story, tell me in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more fun adventures and mysteries. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.